Wouldn't it be like the most petty, humiliating, yet startling thing if I just fired my hat at him?
Ron Howard, once a beloved child star and now an Oscar-winning director, has long been seen as Hollywood's ultimate nice guy. From The Andy Griffith Show to A Beautiful Mind, he built a reputation for being calm, respectful, and widely admired. On screen, Mayberry looked like a close-knit family. And yes, Howard shared real laughs with Andy Griffith and Don Knotts. But behind the scenes, not everything was friendly. There was one person Ron couldn't stand. Someone left him feeling deeply disappointed. And he wasn't alone. That same person sparked a private feud with Andy Griffith himself, one that lasted years. The tension simmered beneath the surface, the bitterness never faded, and the truth remained locked away in silence. But finally, it has come to light. The Andy Griffith Show. The Andy Griffith Show isn't just an old TV series, it's a beloved piece of American history that still touches hearts. Though it aired from 1960 to 1968, its stories, values, and characters continue to bring comfort and joy to viewers old and new. For 8 beautiful years, the show invited audiences into the charming fictional town of Mayberry, a place where life was simpler, problems were small, and kindness always won. The series delivered 249 episodes, each about 30 minutes long. The first 159 were in black and white, giving them a nostalgic, timeless look. The last 90 were in color, bringing Mayberry to life in bright detail. But whether black and white or in color, every episode kept the same spirit, wholesome, funny, and full of heart. Surprisingly, the show didn't start on its own. It first appeared as a special episode on The Danny Thomas Show.
Name ain't Clem, it's Andy. Andy Taylor.
That's where we met Andy Taylor, the calm, wise sheriff of Mayberry, played by Andy Griffith. His peaceful nature, gentle humor, and steady leadership won over viewers immediately. Soon, Andy and his little town got their own series, and history was made. Mayberry was fictional, but it felt real. Said to have just a few thousand people, it was the kind of town where everyone knew your name. Sheriff Andy Taylor wasn't just a lawman, he was also a widowed father raising his young son Opie on his own. Andy didn't carry a gun or shout commands. He kept peace with patience, common sense, and quiet strength. He was the steady center of Mayberry, both as sheriff and father. Opie, played by a young Ron Howard, was sweet and curious. The bond between father and son was one of the show's most touching elements. They fished together, shared life lessons, and grew side by side in scenes full of tenderness and wisdom. Keeping their home together was Aunt Bee, played by Frances Bavier. She wasn't just a housekeeper, she was family. Aunt Bee offered love, advice, and plenty of home-cooked meals. Her warm presence made the Taylor household feel full and complete. And then there was Barney Fife, Andy's well-meaning but wildly over-the-top deputy. Played by the unforgettable Don Knotts, Barney was nervous, ambitious, and often got in over his head. His comic blunders, like misfiring his gun or panicking over a missing pie, made him a fan favorite. Andy always guided him with a knowing smile, and their deep friendship was one of the show's most treasured parts. But the magic didn't stop with the main characters. Mayberry was filled with lovable townsfolk, nosy neighbors, wise barbers, and friendly shopkeepers. Each week, viewers were invited into their world to laugh at Barney's antics, watch Opie grow up, and feel the quiet beauty of small-town life. Even though it aired in the 60s, Andy Griffith once said the show felt more like the 30s, a slower, gentler time. It was never trendy or flashy. That's what made it special. It offered peace, warmth, and values that never go out of style. The audience loved it. It was a top-rated show its entire run, finishing in 1968 as the #1 program in America, a rare honor shared with I Love Lucy and Seinfeld. Don Knotts won 5 Emmys for his role, and Frances Bavier won 1, though Andy Griffith himself never received an Emmy for his performance. Even today, The Andy Griffith Show lives on. You can still watch it on channels like MeTV and TV Land, or stream it online, where new generations fall in love with its charm. In Andy Griffith's real hometown, Mount Airy, North Carolina, fans gather by the thousands each year for Mayberry Days. They dress like the characters, sing old songs, and bring the peaceful world of Mayberry back to life. But while Mayberry seemed like a perfect, happy town on screen, what was really happening behind the scenes? What hidden tensions quietly bubbled on set, away from the smiling faces and laughter? Behind the scenes, the real-life tension in The Andy Griffith Show. On screen, The Andy Griffith Show felt like a warm hug. Sheriff Andy Taylor and Aunt Bee were the heart of Mayberry, steady, loving, and kind. Their relationship, filled with gentle teasing, quiet wisdom, and deep affection, made viewers believe they were truly family. But behind the camera, the connection between Andy Griffith and Frances Bavier was far more complicated. Andy Griffith, who played the calm and playful sheriff, loved to keep things light on set. He enjoyed cracking jokes, playing pranks, and creating a friendly, relaxed atmosphere. Frances Bavier, however, was nothing like Aunt Bee when the cameras weren't rolling. A serious, private, and deeply professional actress, she didn't appreciate the off-screen joking around. She preferred focus and structure, something the easygoing mood on set often lacked. Ron Howard, who played young Opie Taylor, noticed the divide. In interviews, he shared how Bavier never quite felt like part of the group. The cast bonded like a family, but Bavier stayed distant. Griffith's playful teasing may have been good-natured, but Bavier didn't find it amusing. She often kept to herself, and her seriousness clashed with the playful energy around her. Other cast members noticed it too. Howard Morris, who played Ernest T. Bass and directed several episodes, once said working with Bavier was like stepping on a landmine. Even small requests, like asking her to move slightly for the camera, could lead to tense moments. She was proud of her work and didn't like being questioned or corrected. George Lindsay, who played Goober Pyle, even claimed in his memoir that Bavier once physically lashed out at another actor. Whether that story was exaggerated or not, it added to the growing picture of a woman who was often frustrated or unhappy behind the scenes. Still, Andy Griffith never spoke negatively about Bavier during the show's run. He kept things professional and didn't air private conflicts in public. It wasn't until a 1998 interview on Larry King Live that he quietly confirmed the rumors. Their relationship had been strained, but by then, the story had taken a poignant turn. 4 months before her death in 1989, Frances Bavier called Griffith out of the blue. She apologized for how she'd behaved during the show's filming, admitting she had been difficult. Griffith accepted her apology. It was a moment of quiet reconciliation after years of distance. There had been earlier signs of Bavier's emotional distance. In 1972, Griffith and Ron Howard visited her home in Siler City, North Carolina. She refused to let them in, only speaking to them through the closed door. The same thing happened in 1986, when producers tried to bring her into the reunion movie Return to Mayberry. She declined to participate, and again spoke to visitors through her door, saying simply, "I never liked Andy Griffith." That's a startling comment, especially for fans who saw Aunt Bee as the soul of the Taylor household. But the truth is, Frances Bavier often felt out of step with the rest of the cast. Some believed she resented the fact that Don Knotts and Andy Griffith got the best comedic scenes, while her character, though beloved, was mostly serious. That may have deepened her feelings of isolation. Rance Howard, Ron's father, once suggested that Andy himself held on to some bitterness toward Bavier over the years. It's easy to see how two strong-willed professionals with very different styles might have quietly clashed under the surface. Yet none of that tension ever showed on screen. The affection between Andy and Aunt Bee felt real. Their gentle kitchen conversations, the quiet comfort of their family dinners, and the care she showed to Opie made Mayberry feel like home. Fans may feel surprised or even sad to learn of the off-screen strain, but in a way, it makes the show even more impressive. Despite personal differences, these actors work together to create something lasting, something that continues to bring joy to people decades later. Frances Bavier retired in 1972 and spent her final years in quiet solitude. She died in 1989 at age 86. Andy Griffith lived a longer life and passed away peacefully in 2012. But together, through all the tension, they built a legacy. Aunt Bee and Sheriff Taylor may not have been close in real life, but on screen, they gave the world something unforgettable. Even after all these years, the Andy Griffith Show still touches our hearts. It shows us that kindness can change everything, laughter can heal pain, and the most powerful stories come from deep within. But behind the gentle charm of little Opie Taylor was a real boy, Ron Howard. What shaped him into the person he became? What was it really like growing up in front of the camera? And how did this young boy so quickly find his place in the bright, demanding world of show business? Ron Howard, from child star to acclaimed director. Ron Howard's career is one of the most inspiring stories in Hollywood. Born on March 1, 1954 in Duncan, Oklahoma, Ronald William Howard was practically born into show business. His father, Rance Howard, was an actor, writer, and director who changed his original last name Beckenholt to Howard to sound more professional. His mother, Jean Spiegel Howard, was an actress too. With parents so deeply involved in the entertainment world, Ron's path seemed set from the start. When Ron was born, his father was serving in the U.S. Air Force. After Rance finished his service, the family moved to California, where Ron grew up surrounded by movie sets and television studios. With his natural charm and talent, Ron began acting at a young age. He was tutored while working on set and went to school in Burbank, later attending USC's film school, though he didn't graduate. His passion for directing had already taken hold. Ron's early roles in shows like The Twilight Zone and Dennis the Menace helped build his career. But everything changed in 1960 when, at just 6 years old, he was cast as Opie Taylor in The Andy Griffith Show. Playing the son of the wise, kind Sheriff Andy Taylor, Ron's role captured hearts across America. The show ran for 8 seasons, and Ron appeared in every one of them, becoming one of the most beloved child actors in TV history. After The Andy Griffith Show, Ron continued acting. One small appearance in a comedy sketch called Love and the Television Set led to something much bigger. That sketch was later renamed Love and the Happy Days, and it became the pilot for the now famous sitcom Happy Days. In it, Ron played Richie Cunningham, a polite, all-American teenager growing up in the 50s. With Henry Winkler as the Fonz, the show became a cultural hit. While Winkler's cool character got most of the attention, Ron's steady presence helped ground the show, and their friendship lasted off-screen too. Despite his acting success, Ron had other dreams. From a young age, he had watched directors closely and wanted to be one himself. That dream became reality in 1977 when he directed Grand Theft Auto, a low-budget comedy he co-wrote with his father. It was made under legendary producer Roger Corman, who let Ron direct if he also acted in another movie, Eat My Dust. The gamble worked. Ron had officially started a new chapter as a director. He continued directing made-for-TV films before getting his first big hit with Night Shift in 1982. The movie starred Michael Keaton and Henry Winkler and proved Ron had real talent behind the camera. Then came Splash. a love story about a man and a mermaid starring Tom Hanks. It was a huge success and launched Ron into Hollywood's top director circle. In 1985, he directed Cocoon, a touching sci-fi story about seniors who find a magical pool that makes them feel young again. It was both a box office and critical hit, earning Don Ameche an Oscar. In 1989, Parenthood hit theaters, a funny, heartfelt look at raising kids. With stars like Steve Martin and Keanu Reeves, it became a major success. By the time the 80s came to a close, Ron Howard had done something rare. He had stepped out of the shadow of childhood fame and become one of Hollywood's most respected directors. His path was shaped by quiet determination, true talent, and a deep love for storytelling that never faded. From a little boy in Mayberry to a powerful force behind the camera, Ron's journey remains one of the most inspiring stories in the world of film. Behind the scenes of success and fame, what about his heart? For a gentle soul like Ron Howard, did he ever find true love? Did someone special walk beside him through the highs and lows of his remarkable life? A perfect pair. The lasting romance of Ron and Cheryl Howard. In a world where celebrity romances often fade as quickly as they begin, Ron and Cheryl Howard's love story shines like a rare gem. Their bond, which began as teenagers in the early 70s, has grown stronger with each passing year. Through career triumphs, parenting 4 children, and navigating the spotlight, they've remained each other's rock. Now, over 50 years later, their devotion is as moving as ever. Their story began at John Burroughs High School in Burbank, California, when both were just 16. Ron was already a rising star thanks to the Andy Griffith Show, but Cheryl wasn't dazzled by fame. What connected them was something far more genuine. On November 1st, 1970, Ron picked Cheryl up in his mint green Volkswagen Beetle for their first date. They saw It's a Mad, 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 Mad World and shared pizza afterward. A simple start to a lifelong romance. 5 years later, on June 7, 1975, they were married in a heartfelt ceremony in Burbank. Friends, family, and a few Happy Days cast members, including Tom Bosley, attended. Their wedding, like their relationship, was sincere and sweet, not flashy, just full of love. What's remarkable isn't just that they stayed together in an industry known for breakups, but how deeply their love has endured. Ron often credits Cheryl with keeping him grounded. As he transitioned from acting to directing, helming hits like Splash, Apollo 13, and A Beautiful Mind, Cheryl was his quiet strength. Her handwritten notes of encouragement during stressful times became a source of calm and perspective for him. In a world spinning with fame and deadlines, Cheryl was his anchor. But Cheryl is more than just the woman behind the man. She's a writer, a thinker, and a deeply independent spirit. Their daughter, actress Bryce Dallas Howard, describes Cheryl as a force of nature, someone who leads with both heart and wisdom. Bryce once revealed that Cheryl made Ron propose 3 times, not because she wasn't sure of her love, but because she wanted to finish school first. That determination and sense of self helped form a marriage built on balance. Together, Ron and Cheryl raised 4 children, including fraternal twins. Despite busy careers, they nurtured a close-knit family with deep-rooted values. Bryce and Paige followed creative paths, but all the Howard children have spoken about the steady love and guidance they received from their parents. Over the decades, Ron and Cheryl have stayed connected not just through love, but through shared passions. They attend events together, read stories side by side, and discuss films and books with equal curiosity. Ron has said Cheryl's emotional insight often shapes how he sees characters and stories, reminding him to focus on human connection in his work. On June 7, 2025, the couple celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary. Ron marked the moment with a heartfelt social media post, sharing a photo of them on a beach at sunset. He wrote, "Grateful for 50 amazing years and the family and experiences it has yielded. What an adventure! Downriver, through calm, soothing waters, and some tricky rapids as well." He added that the secret to their success was loving and respecting each other enough to keep paddling. The year before, Ron brought a spark of nostalgia to their anniversary by taking Cheryl for a drive in the same Volkswagen Beetle from their first date. It was a tender tribute to the day their journey began. Ron often shares what he believes keeps a marriage strong: communication, growing together, and a touch of luck. But above all, he believes in friendship, respect, and daily effort, showing up for each other year after year. Cheryl once shared that what first drew her to Ron was his gift for storytelling. That shared love of imagination, wonder, and heartfelt moments has been the thread that's tied them together for over 50 years. But even for someone as kind and steady as Ron Howard, was life always smooth? In a world as unpredictable as Hollywood, did he ever face controversy? Ron Howard's rare brush with controversy. Ron Howard is known in Hollywood as one of the most respected, low-key figures, a rare blend of childhood star turned award-winning director who has maintained a clean reputation. While he has largely avoided the personal scandals and public outbursts that often follow fame, a few of his creative decisions as a filmmaker have sparked controversy over the years. These moments, though relatively minor, reveal the tensions between storytelling, public expectation, and cultural sensitivity. One of Howard's most public controversies came in 2006 with the release of The Da Vinci Code, an adaptation of Dan Brown's wildly popular novel. Although the film was a commercial success, it attracted strong backlash, particularly from religious groups. Catholic organizations, most notably Opus Dei, accused the film of spreading blasphemous ideas and distorting Christian history. Some demanded a disclaimer stating that the film was fictional. Howard refused, arguing that the film was clearly a work of fiction and that adding a disclaimer would compromise creative freedom. The incident placed Howard in the middle of a heated cultural debate, but he remained calm and defended the integrity of the film without getting personal. Another significant point of contention came with A Beautiful Mind, which won Howard an Academy Award for Best Director. The film told the moving story of John Nash, a brilliant mathematician who struggled with schizophrenia. While praised for its emotional depth and strong performances, the film was later criticized for omitting key elements of Nash's life, such as homosexuality, a child born out of wedlock, and allegations of abandoning that child. Critics accused Howard of sanitizing Nash's story for broader audience appeal and Oscar recognition. Howard acknowledged the omissions but explained that the film was meant to focus on Nash's illness and marriage rather than be a comprehensive biography. What affected Howard most was how the criticism impacted Nash personally, suggesting that the backlash sometimes crossed a human line. Beyond these specific films, Howard occasionally faces broader critique about his overall directing style. While many admire his versatility and technical skill, others argue that his films are too safe, polished, or emotionally restrained. Some label him a studio yes-man, suggesting he avoids the edginess or risk-taking seen in the work of directors like Quentin Tarantino or Martin Scorsese. However, many also see this steadiness as a strength, his ability to tell emotionally resonant stories with heart, even if they're not provocative. Throughout his career, Howard has responded to criticism with professionalism and reflection. He doesn't lash out or seek headlines. Instead, he emphasizes thoughtful storytelling, emotional truth, and respect for the people behind the stories. Whether facing backlash or praise, he stays focused on his craft. From his beginnings as Opie on The Andy Griffith Show to becoming a major Hollywood director, Howard's rare brushes with controversy have been tied more to artistic choices than personal failings. In a culture that often thrives on scandal, Howard stands out for his quiet consistency, integrity, and ability to navigate criticism with grace. Even someone as admirable as Ron Howard has his breaking point. So who has crossed that line? And what is it about them that bothers him so deeply? Ron Howard and the people who let him down. Ron Howard has always seemed like one of the calmest, kindest people in Hollywood. For more than 60 years, he stayed out of scandals, stayed away from fights, and stayed focused on telling good stories. Whether acting in front of the camera as a child star or directing big movies later in life, he has been known for being steady, respectful, and deeply professional. But even someone as patient and polite as Ron Howard has his limits. And in recent years, a few people have pushed him close to those limits. People who changed so much over time that Howard no longer recognized them. One of those people is J.D. Vance, the author of the best-selling book Hillbilly Elegy. Back in 2020, Ron Howard directed a movie based on Vance's book. He saw the story as one of struggle and survival, about a boy who came from a poor and difficult background and still managed to succeed. At the time, Vance was not in politics. He wasn't a senator, and he didn't speak much about political beliefs. That worked perfectly for Howard. He wasn't trying to make a political movie. He just wanted to tell a personal story about family, pain, and resilience. Howard worked hard on the film, which starred Amy Adams and Glenn Close. He tried to be respectful of the material and focused on what he thought was the heart of the story, how someone survives a tough upbringing and still holds on to hope. He didn't try to push any political message, and he and Vance didn't really talk about politics during the making of the film. But in the years after the film's release, everything changed. Vance entered politics. He began speaking out in ways that surprised and deeply disappointed Howard. The J.D. Vance Howard had worked with and had seemed thoughtful, reflective, even humble. But the new Vance, the one on political stages, sounded completely different. He started using strong far-right language, taking firm stances that Howard didn't agree with at all. In a quiet but firm way, Howard admitted how let down he felt. He said he was shocked by some of the things he had read and heard from Vance. He didn't call Vance a bad person, but his tone made it clear this was not the same man he had once tried to understand and portray honestly on screen. People change, Howard said, and sometimes they change so much you no longer know who they are. What hurt Howard wasn't just the political shift. It was the feeling of betrayal. He had invested time, care, and thought into telling Vance's story. Now, seeing how Vance was presenting himself to the world, Howard felt that maybe he'd helped promote someone whose views he couldn't support. It felt personal. And for Howard, who has always treated his work with deep sincerity, that made the disappointment sting even more. But this wasn't the first time Howard had worked closely with someone who left him cold. Long before he was an award-winning director, Howard was just a kid playing Opie Taylor on The Andy Griffith Show. America loved the show. It was sweet, simple, and wholesome, and people assumed that the cast got along just as well off-screen as they did on-screen. But that wasn't always the case. One cast member in particular made young Ron Howard feel uncomfortable, Frances Bavier, the actress who played Aunt Bee. While her character on the show was kind, warm, and full of love, Howard remembers her being strict, distant, and hard to connect with. She wasn't mean exactly, but she wasn't friendly either. She treated him like just another actor, not a child who needed warmth or encouragement. One scene in particular stuck with Howard forever. In an episode called The Pickle Story, Opie has to eat several jars of Aunt Bee's terrible homemade pickles. What the audience didn't know was that Ron Howard absolutely hated pickles. He had to eat them over and over again for the camera, take after take. And with Frances Bavier standing across from him, cold and unsmiling, the whole experience became miserable. That moment was burned into his memory not just because of the pickles, but because of the way she made him feel small, ignored, and invisible. Howard never talked much about that back then. He was just a child, and he did his job without complaining. But years later, when people asked him about those early days, he didn't pretend everything was perfect. He didn't hide the truth. Frances Bavier, the woman America thought was so loving, had never shown him any affection or warmth. It wasn't a dramatic feud, just a cold memory that stayed with him. As a filmmaker, Howard knows that telling someone else's story is always risky. If you leave out too much, people say you're hiding the truth. If you show too much, others say you've gone too far. Either way, the person telling the story gets blamed. And in the case of Hillbilly Elegy, that burden now feels heavier because the man at the center of the story became someone Howard no longer respects. Still, Howard hasn't lashed out. That's never been his style. He hasn't called Vance names or started a public fight. Instead, he's chosen to speak carefully, choosing his words with the same thoughtfulness he brings to his movies. He's told people to pay attention, to listen to what politicians say, and to vote with care. That, he believes, is the most important thing. Even when he was a child actor, Howard had a quiet strength. He knew how to keep his head down, do the work, and move on. But those early lessons, like the discomfort he felt with Aunt Bee, stuck with him. They taught him how to spot real warmth from forced kindness. They taught him how to recognize when someone was being authentic and when they weren't. Howard never wanted to become a political voice. He's always been more focused on stories about people, about human struggles and triumphs. But sometimes, stories and politics collide. And when that happens, Howard believes it's important to speak up, even gently. He doesn't despise many people, but there's no question that he feels let down. First by a co-star who made a warm show feel cold, and later by a man he once tried to help, who became someone Howard could no longer support. Those experiences didn't turn him bitter. They made him wiser. And now, as J.D. Vance steps into an even brighter spotlight, possibly becoming the next vice president, Howard has made his feelings clear without raising his voice. He's not trying to rewrite history. He's trying to remind people of something deeper. That character matters. That truth matters. And that when someone tells you who they are, you should believe them. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe, and also click the next video shown on your screen.